Good.
part of like me recording Dominion history. So I have like been through all the VODs and stuff like that a few times over.
Great.
So
Glad you enjoy the content.
it was, yeah, man. It's a weekly broadcast. There's some weeks where I'm like, oh my god, it's so good, and there's some weeks where it's like, okay.
Yeah, no, it was, after having had that whole experiment go and ultimately not succeed,
Okay.
I can safely say it definitely had some ups and downs, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Cool. All right. All right. Let me open the thing. Go over to here. I still have the overlay up. Let's see if I can put him on. No, I haven't got a word back from the other guy. Ah. Okay. It looks like it might be just us, because unless I hear back from FourCourt like immediately, then might not be able to get him. Stream just went up. Um. So.
When you say stream just went up, are we broadcasting this interview?
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be made into a VOD.
I see,
And
I see.
the easiest way to do that is to record it with XSplit. And I'm like, well, I have XSplit on anyway.
No, that makes perfect sense.
I might as well send it out to Twitch and then send the Twitch VOD to YouTube, and that's the fastest way I can get the video turned around.
Mm-hmm.
Vane, get out. Get out.
We're running just slightly and tad late, unfortunately. I'm doing everything on one monitor, so it's a little wacky because I don't have the second one available to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So things are a little bit zany. And do I got him? Okay, cool. All right, well, sweet. Go over to here. Go over to here. Okay, we're gonna throw FourCourt on first because he's got a cast in like 20 minutes.
Sounds good.
And then once he gets in here, I'll drop the overlay and it'll show the main screen and stuff like that. Which really isn't a lot right now, oddly. Okay. Ah. All right. He said he'll be here in just a second, which is cool. Tab back over to that. Okay, that looks fine.
No, you.
Oh, you got it? Cool. Doing all this with one monitor, so it's kind of crazy right now because I don't have access to the monitor right now. All right, so Tassenix, FeedSki, FourCourt, everyone's all in here.
Indeed.
The whole crew.
Okay.
Somebody sent me a 62-minute fucking replay. 62-minute.
I got a 75-minute one if you want that. It's terrible level yellow though.
62. This is Alienware, but 62 fucking minutes.
Yeah, it's zany. Okay, so it's no, not that one. This one. This one. This
Thank you,
one.
love.
This one. Okay, cool. And I got like a bunch of screenshots and other things like that if I need to bring up stuff for reference, and they'll be put on the. They'll go out to the stream. I don't know how to link them in like a call or anything like that. But anyway, for anyone who's watching, hi, I'm Gandair of the gaming clan Vato clan, here to do a video about Dominion history with some of the more, I guess, poignant or at least knowledgeable members of Dominion here. I'm going to go over who they are briefly, and then we'll jump right into it because one of our guests has to go do some casting later on. On the show today, I've got FourCourtJester, I've got TheFeedski, and I have Tassenix. Let's go Tassenix, FeedSki, FourCourt. If you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick in that order, and then we'll jump right into topics.
I am Tassenix.
Is that all? Is it my turn now? Is that,
Sure.
I
I
thought
thought
we
it
were
was
just
the last.
identifying ourselves.
Yeah, that way the viewers know the
Okay,
voices.
I got you. Okay, well I'm the FeedSki.
And I'm FourCourtJester. Ha ha ha.
And FourCourtJester, I'm actually really, really happy to have been able to get you for this episode. You were kind of added a little bit last minute, and I'm gonna briefly touch on Dominion launch and then kick over to you. When Dominion was where's my button at? Okay. When my button's all effed. There we go. Now, Dominion came out September 26th, I believe, 2011, and brand new game mode. A lot of people said it was kind of alike, World of Warcraft's Arathi base, and some people were like, oh, it's like a King of the Hill mode. And I really like the capture and control style of gameplay. And us, along with many others, thought that it was awesome, and we all came and started playing it. It was new, it was chaotic, and it was crazy. Like Rammus and Shaco were scary, and then there were other champions that you were just like, oh, that champion's terrible. And then later on, we found out they were really good, and no one really knew what to expect when Dominion came out, because it was in and out in beta for a little while. And I'd like to go over what everyone's first impressions were of Dominion. And let's go in the same order: Tassenix, FeedSki, and then FourCourt. For me, playing it again was I love capture and control. I like having a point to defend that's attackable from different angles. I didn't like the linear attack paths that Summoner's Rift has, sort of, in a way. You generally are coming from one direction. Now that's a very general statement, because there's the come from behind tower ganks, which is one of my favorite things, or turret ganks, come from behind the turret ganks and stuff that I really like in Summoner's Rift. And you don't see those too often just because of the inherent risk in them. However, with the ability to capture or to click a turret in Dominion and turn it off temporarily, it really lets you assail it from any angle. And because the nature of the map being in a circle, it sort of opens up that play of, I can kind of go anywhere. The map is divided into sort of a Y shape more than halves, and I feel more free in what I can do on that map, and that's why I like it so much. Tassenix, what was your first impression of Dominion when it came out?
It was a brand new opportunity to experience the champions, but in a completely different play style. The capture and control was interesting, but as we pointed out, we've seen that in other games before. What we ended up seeing is a whole new meta develop for this mode. And the speed comps, or the teleportation comps, or the long range comps, bruiser comps, all these specific things that were unique and fresh to the mode, and that's what hooked me.
And FeedSki, what about you? When Dominion first came out, what made you bite on it and be like, I want this, it's delightful?
I don't know. Actually, when I first started playing it in beta, I didn't really like it. But that was like my first couple of games. And then I just kept playing it because my friends and my brother were all playing it. And after about like 10 games, I really started to enjoy it, and I kept playing it, and I couldn't go back to Summoner's Rift because it was too slow for me. I really like action, and it's a lot more fast-paced, and I don't know. It was a bunch of things, but it was just, I was kind of getting tired of the old Summoner's Rift. Like, I don't know, because I played Han previously a little bit as well, and it's kind of the same in a way, but Dominion brought something fresh, new, so I enjoyed it and switched over to it.
And FourCourt, when Dominion came out, because I know you've been active in both, you've been pretty active in both game modes. Did you play a lot of Dominion in the beta when it first came out? What was your first experiences with it?
My first experiences was attack speed blitzcrank. Yeah, man. That's what I rolled. I was like, I have no idea how to build this. It's all wonderful and new, and oh my god, how did I just lose? It was a sense of wonderment, you know. Nobody had really taken MOBA successfully from that 3-lane 5-on-5 kind of challenge, and this was something fresh and new. And League of Legends had a lot of steam behind it. And as we kind of figured it all out, as we kept going on and figuring out that there's a competitive side to it all, it just became more and more just atypical Summoner's Rift. It all, attack damage, attack speed, Malzahar, very tanky lanes, and supports, kind of shining in their own roles. But they're not supporting someone and shining; they're just kind of their own beacons of light. It was, again, just a very big sense of bewilderment, and that's why I really enjoyed casting it or getting into the whole thing, because it was different. It was something new. It was fresh.
And going from it being new and interesting, when Dominion was very new, this was back in October of last year. Something interesting happened on my computer. Come on, little button. There we go. Okay. Back in October of last year, we had, as far as I know, the single competitive Dominion event on LAN, like a live event. And that was Devastation LAN 2011, which was held in Phoenix, Arizona. And it happened not long after Dominion came out. I mean, it was only in October. Dominion had only been out for a couple of weeks, but it had been in beta for before then, had gotten a lot of press and a lot of notoriety leading up to when it was launched. And also at the same time, spectator controls and things were also kind of new to Riot at the time. And FourCourt, along with Semler, got the sort of first look behind the helm at competitive Dominion. And I'd really love it if you could talk about that event a little bit and what competition was like back then.
Back then, it was very one-sided. That's pretty much the only way I could really describe that tournament. I mean, again, it was all fresh and new, and Devastation, for some reason, decided to host a Heroes of New Earth concurrent tournament with Dominion. And it's like, who's going to come out to a Dominion tournament? But the local university stepped it up, and they tried their hand. And the results, all the way up to the finals, were pretty much 450 to 0 stomps. Like, I think the fastest game we had was like 3 minutes 45 seconds.
What?
Yeah. Again, everything was new. People kept trying to play it like Summoner's Rift, but a few of the teams there had it on good authority that, no, you should play it a little differently. This was also the time of Wandering Twitch and Priscilla's Blessing before it did get eventually removed. And I can only really blame that tournament for that reason. It all became down to these roaming strats that we now didn't really see too much in Summoner's Rift, but it also revolved around stealth, speed, and Priscilla's Blessing. So very kind of one-sided games. They were fun to cast. They were very fast action, but I mean, 3-minute 45-minute games is just like, these days our top fight can last over 4 to 5 minutes with all the revive abuse. So some of these games are over even before then.
Yeah, I did manage to get a hold of some VODs, and I wish I'd been able to get a hold of you a little bit earlier to link those to you, so you kind of skim through a few of them, because video coverage and media coverage were kind of incomplete back in that era. I mean, the VODs only cover, I think they only cover the winners side, because I think it was double elimination, right?
Nope.
Was it single elim?
I do not remember it being double elimination, but but everything was being hosted through Beyond Gaming, and I'm actually very curious that you were able to find VODs, because I wasn't.
It took me about 3 weeks of looking through different organizations, and my League client exploded. Okay, it's back. Going through, I had to go to Devastation's info for that year. I had to find out where the streams were, and I'm like, well, it wasn't ever on any of the main streams. So I'm going back through their Twitch archives and things like that, and I'm like, what if it was on one of the sponsor streams? So I'm going through all the Twitch channels of all of these different companies that sponsored the event, and I have a shovel and a backhoe, and I'm just going through everything trying to find it. and I came up with VODs from day 3, like end of day 2, middle of day 3. So I caught. Oh no, it was right. It wasn't double. I don't think it was double limit. I think it was just that you did the semis one day and you did the finals a different day. You did it on the second day. That might be where I'm getting the 2 parts of it from.
Yeah, we did majority of it on the Saturday, and then the rest of it on the Sunday. And they actually closed down the venue on us before we were actually able to get to the finals, because they were supposed to be like these big best of 3, best of 5 semis and finals, and we kind of ran out of time in the venue, and they kicked us out. Like, all right, one game takes all, and just take the keyboards when you leave.
Oh, that explains so
That
much
just
then.
yeah. Yeah, time management was not the best, and it wasn't really the organizers' fault. It was really the teams. The whole bunch of teams signed up and then didn't bother showing up, so they kept putting us behind. So yeah, we just said, okay, just take the keyboards. You've won them all. Here's the first place prizes. Here's the second place prizes, and then we just literally collapsed everything in the matter of 30 minutes and had to get out before.
Wow, 13
Yeah.
minutes, like buy something or get out. Like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, we
And-
weren't so happy, but hey, the games got played, so we couldn't complain too much.
All right. Oh, I keep screwing up my splits because the key's bound to something. I have a timer. The timer's completely wrong now because it is. I can't believe I did that. Okay, so there we go. Come on.
No,
No.
what a failure. Jeez.
I broke my timer. Dang it. Okay.
So whenever I think back to the devastation, it's always about that roaming, that roaming fifth member with that Priscilla's, the speed. Reminds me a lot, like Pooters really probably enjoyed his time before the Priscilla's blessing got destroyed.
If I knew Pooters like while Priscilla's was still in the game, he already makes me angry when I have to play against him. Like, if I had to deal with the Priscilla's as well, jeez.
Yep.
I'm gonna recap a little bit of that because from those videos I actually extracted some of the match media by watching through it and just writing down what was played, and some of the bands there are a little similar to what we see even today. There were a lot of Ramus bands, a lot of Jax bands, a lot of Shaco bands, although Shaco is not something that we see banned too often anymore. There were some poppy bands mixed in there as well. Akali was also a popular band at the time, and the picks were the picks are just kind of wacky. I mean, there's a lot of Twitch, like you were talking about, FourCourt. I mean, he was very popular there. It was the team way bigger that kept using Twitch and running him and just like winning games with him. We also saw a lot of Gangplank bans, and I guess that's because he's an AD champ. He's got a global ult. Back then it was like everyone played AD. I would roll into a game against 5 AD and be like, tell my team, guys, just build a bunch of Thornmails and some Randuins, and we just win. And we did. It wasn't even hard. We played bad comms, but we won just by the fact that they were just all AD. And unless they had a really sick back capper that we couldn't catch, and they'd win anyway. And it's like, how are we losing against a team that's all AD? Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, man, Priscilla's Blessing was a crazy time in history there, and that explains why there's only one game of the best of 3 finals in that one, because then the VOD just kind of ended abruptly, and I'm like, where did it go? Warmogs was also a really popular item too. I see a lot of champions picked that up at that time.
Heimer Warmogs used to be a great lane defender. You just put him bottom with a Warmogs, and every time his turrets killed something, the Warmogs would automatically move up.
Oh, that's dirty. I wish I would have known that.
Oh, well, it obviously got nerfed. You can't buy Warmogs anymore. But
I used to run Warmogs Katarina in Dominion, and that was brutal because when Shunpo still gave 30% damage reduction, I'd run her with max cooldown reduction. I'd get a Mercury Treads or Tabby Spirit Visage Warmogs, and then I would get like Abyssal Scepter and Zanya's Hourglass, and it was just like, sup. Yeah, or just stack more hit points, and I'd get like Riley's Crystal Scepter and a Frozen Mallet just to be a huge jerk. And somehow it still was completely viable because she had so much HP you couldn't stop her, and she'd just chip you down over time. And yeah, that was. I don't think we've had anything since. Can you guys think of anything? I mean, I know Dominion's been featured at PAX events a couple times, but has never been in a competitive capacity there, I don't think.
I mean, there were certainly no major leagues, to my knowledge, constructed around it. The closest thing that Sorry?
Nestle? NESL?
Well, like I said, aside from the one that we did,
Yeah.
I really wasn't aware of any other efforts. And but that was the surprising thing about that, though. For as much interest as the community expressed, I mean, the Dominate Dominion channel on the on the LoL client was always packed. People, wanted to see more content. They were definitely interested. But then we consistently had problems filling the roles. And that was a shame. We thought we had so much interest in seeing something serious come out of Dominion.
And so,
Well,
go on. I didn't mean to talk over anyone.
yeah, well, yeah, a lot of the attitude problems that came from Dominion is the fact that the hyper carries, which like Jax, the Akali, the Gangplank, those kind of guys, which is why you see a lot of those picks. And man, the fact that those hyper carries just scaled so well just gave people this sense that Dominion is not really meant to be competitive. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's just, oh, you just go in here with a hyper carry. 10 minutes later, you got your Triforce and your Lightbringer or your Last Whisper. I don't know why I keep calling it that, but yeah, then you just roll phase. You jump, you insta kill something, you go on to the next one, and that was a big problem with early Dominion.
All right, and if you want to hang for a minute, I mean that's all I had on Devastation, and I knew you were the best guy for that. I did manage to meet Semler in Anaheim at MLG and talk to him for a little bit about that, and he was a really cool guy. And actually, I'll hit on that as the last question because Semler now does a lot of work over in Europe, doing casting and hosting and things like that, and is a really awesome personality. What was it like being able to cast with him?
Well, I mean, we'd been casting already. The whole previous year, we've been doing Bloodline Champions pretty much exclusively. It started off with the one cast in Tazosaurus. Tazosaurus got sick, and I got interested. So there's one cast of me. Then Semler entered the scene, and between the three of us, we would pretty much do 100% of all the BLCs. So we had a good sense of each other. We had a good sense of our timings. We'd talk all the time, and this was his first league event. It was also his first Han event as well because that was going on at the time. But since then, yeah, he just kind of skyrocketed. He got in good with Too Good, and then they moved him out to Europe, and that's where he does all of his stuff now. So it was a fun time sharing a room with him, hanging out, doing all the casting. Like he's a really funny and really just fun guy to hang around. So I'm happy to see him with successes out in Europe.
Awesome. Tassenix, FeedSki, do you guys have anything to ask about Devastation before we move on to the next topic?
Not at this time.
No.
And Sauron, did you end up in here?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Okay. You have any questions about Devastation Land 2011, which was the first and only, I think, so far, Dominion land tourney? It was way back in the day. Anything you want to know?
Never heard of it, actually.
Not a lot of people did. Makes me sad.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it was the same weekend as the IPL LoL Premier Tournament.
It was the same weekend as it directly conflicted with IPL 3.
Yeah.
Because I remember I wanted to go to I couldn't make it to IPL 3, so I wanted to go to Devastation. Then I ended up not being able to get the days off work because Devastation's it was right down the street for me because I live in Phoenix or close enough to Phoenix.
The LoL tournament wasn't really planned. It was all Han, and then at the last minute, they're like, "Oh, can you do LoL as well?" It's like, yeah. I was like, great, we're gonna do a Dominion tournament too. It's like, oh, okay, and that's how we got a Dominion tournament out of it. But yeah, the timing was terrible. That IPL 3 weekend had, I believe, Team Dignitas or Rock Solid, it might have been still known as. They took gold on that one, I believe, and nobody watched us at all.
Oh, sad face.
Womp
All right.
womp.
I know you're gonna have to duck out at some point, so you're welcome to stay as long as you want. But if you gotta go, you gotta go. You got any plugs? Can you tell the VOD viewers where they can find you if they want to check out more of your media?
I would just say, go and check out the Dominate Dominion because I do show up there every now and then, get to cast with all you cool cats. So, other than that, if you guys have any other questions, just feel free to hit me up. Twitter, FourCourtJester, just not going anywhere. So, thanks again for having me. It was a pleasure, and I'll catch you guys later.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Take
coming
care.
on. And Sauron, if you want to, real quick, we just added one of the higher end, I guess you could say, of Dominion ELO players and one of the top competitors in Dominion to the call here. Sauron, can you introduce
Pretty
yourself?
sure I'm horrible.
He's confirmed for Tripe, but we love him anyway.
Never heard of the guy. I don't know.
Oh, I'm very familiar with Sauron.
One guy knows him, so you have one fan.
Woohoo, one whole fan.
My clock is still broke. But yeah. The next thing I want to talk about is going on down the line of Dominion. We talked a little bit about when it came out, what people's first impressions were, and then we talked about Devastation. And Tassenix, I'm really thrilled to have you on the show because while I'm familiar with the present day of Dominion, at least I like to think that I'm pretty familiar with it, there's sort of that middle era of Dominion. Yeah, there was the beta, then there was up to Devastation, and then there was the, if I remember this right, this is the National Electronic Sports League is what NESL stands for?
Yes.
Yeah, the National Electronic Sports League's Conflict on the Crystal Scar, which was a weekly Dominion tournament that was held on Mondays that started back in December
I believe I had them.
Pretty sure it was before that
yeah,
because I
I
came
believe-
in at number 11 and that was at the end of December.
Well, let me open up my
Right.
timeline because I have a Dominion timeline because I'm crazy and completely out of my mind.
Okay.
me
Well,
pop
I'm
that
pretty
open.
sure that I posted the original press release in October. So I think it was later on in
October
October.
17th was NESL
Yeah.
1.
There we are. And I know that in January we revamped the rules completely. So we ended up it fundamentally was a reboot on the program. So that for those first couple months were the earliest phase, and then once we made the necessary adjustments to the rules in January, that's when I'd like to think of it as the the truest form of what we were doing.
Okay. Yeah, there was definitely I saw going through the brackets because when I first got into doing things Dominion related, TheFeedski kind of got me into this whole thing. So, aka, it's all Feedski's fault that I'm here. So, anything that I do in the future can be blamed on me. But thankfully, we can blame Riot because if they didn't make Dominion, Feedski wouldn't be here. And then I think if you go back
Blame Riot.
further, I think you can blame like Han or Dota because I think some people from them came over to help Riot out. And then you go back even further and you're blaming someone's mother, and it just gets really ugly. So actually, just blame me for what I do. But yeah, a little off topic there. Sorry, but yeah, NESL October 17th, 2011, and it ran weekly. It ran for 29 weeks, and I wanted to kind of cover this in a couple of sections because it seemed like very early on in Conflict on the Crystal Scar that things were awesome. I have, from a viewer participation standpoint, I don't necessarily know about from spectators and competition because I could not find any VODs from earlier than NESL number 12. It was either 12 or 14. I found like 2 miscellaneous games from 13. I could not find anything that was older than that.
Yeah,
Except for
unfortunately,
a few screenshots. But match media overall is very sporadic, and some of the brackets are a little wonky on top of that. So early on, there were Curse came out and played, Green Forest came out and played, For Nothing came out and played. I'm trying to think, but there were a couple other really notable Summoner's Rift teams that came out and played in early NESL events. I
that
like.
is
Can you
true.
talk about that area in NESL? NESL roughly like 1 through 6, kind of the early October November of it, like from a competitive standpoint and from a hey, we just started this. What's happening?
Well, you'll have to understand that early on it was a lot of shepherding to get everybody together in a timely fashion. Getting the matches started was often the most difficult thing. See, the reason why you can't find VODs from the earlier tournaments is because we didn't have access to NESL Stream at that time. Also, a lot of the issues that you do describe with the brackets being wonky, the technology that we of the site for managing it can be fritzy, let's say generously at times, and because of that, it often placed people in the wrong spots Sometimes it was user error because at the time I was trying to develop a Dominion team, and I'm a big fan of trial by fire. So, I would be on the Skype call, but I'd be instructing people how to, manage the brackets, and that was not without its punishment. But as far as the competition itself, those first few weeks, I was mostly involved in seeing that it got off the ground and was moving smoothly. So my ability to answer to you what the competition felt like would be very limited, unfortunately. Because early on, before I got into making sure that we had the stream and before I started casting for it, I was essentially administrating it, not so
Okay.
much participating in in the events themselves.
Okay, so that came in later when you got into the position where you ended up doing some of the casting and other things.
Right. Well, once we actually pulled together more resources for it, because once the initiative had started, I needed to set everything up with our stream head and start getting casters and so on and so forth, and then I had to start getting and working with new people to have the brackets always moderated if in the event I couldn't be there, because I did have classes that sometimes overlapped.
Okay, I follow you now. And I can't believe I missed on this one first. How did it? Were you involved in the process and how it came about to existing in the first place?
Well, the head of NESL for North America, asked among the admins who would be interested in taking on a new project centered around Dominion. Now, this is after I'd only played a handful of games, but as I'd already said, I was hooked because it was something fresh, using the same materials, but made a completely different game experience. And so I stuck my hand up enthusiastically and said, "Pick me, pick me." And thus it was mine to put together.
Awesome. And you said there was some sort of a turnaround around December, January, and I think that's actually something that's reflected in the brackets as I'd followed. I
And
have
if you're
all of them
able,
like screenshotted, and I have a whole records thing on my computer that's I've
Mhm.
tallied from all the events.
If you are able to dig through the press releases or after the interview, I'll be happy to link them to you for your reference. You can actually see where that reboot happened, where we changed the rules considerably. We had 4 weeks of competition, and those 3 weeks ended up being you were earning your seed for the fourth week, and that was finals week, and the winners of finals week got fabulous prizes, but it was only once every 4 weeks. And what we ended up deciding was that the model we were using was not encouraging regular competition, because technically the way we had the rules at the time, once you were already starting for the process of the new month, you could still have teams sign up at any point, any week along the process. So really, it often skewed the seeds. And considering that we never really had very large roles for this event, that can be very significant. So it was at that time that we decided that we'd like to switch to a model that encouraged weekly participation. So instead of having a huge prize, a relatively huge prize at the end of the month for, the top winning teams, we are going to make several smaller prizes that would be awarded weekly by design. In reality, getting many of those prizes out was often much more challenging.
Now, roughly in that same period, I don't know whether it's towards the end of one or towards the beginning of the other in that rules change era. There was a notable decline in participation of the sort of the known Summoner's Rift teams, and we also saw that some of that Dominion teams were kind of actually starting to become their own thing. Very early on, Curse sort of dominated in
Hmm.
the scene from NESL 1 to 5, and there were a couple other ones that I just for some reason can't remember off the top of my head, but I know there were I think a total of 7 known Summoner's Rift teams that played in the events, and they were really dominant for a while, but
They
then there
were.
was a team now I don't know if you would know this too well, or maybe if Sauron, if you knew anything about this, but there was definitely a decline where they kind of start participating. The last time that we saw any of them was in NESL 13, which was I think the last time that Team 4 Nothing had an appearance, and the only people after that were Cutie Pie and Skara, who played under the Team Miku League Baby, I believe, and they were actually stayed pretty competitive for a very long time.
They
And
did.
did they simply get edged out by the improved competition, or was
I
it just
think they lost
scheduling as
interest.
Summoner's Rift blew up? Or is it?
I
Or is it
didn't have a whole
unknown?
lot of communication with them, but they were having activity problems and they would frequently not show the tournaments. And I think they just lost interest in Dominion.
All right, that makes sense because around that same time is when Summoner's Rift has been snowballing for such a long time, and as teams and players get their schedules start to expand, they're not as able to do smaller events as they used to when they have to be doing press and streaming and other things for larger events. Now, going into the sort of later days of it. Now, Sauron, this is more your era, so I'd like to ask you about the competition a little bit through this next segment. Going from NESL number 12 down to I don't know NESL 20 something like 24. I think the two biggest teams at the time were the Von-Eyed Wunderwiesels and Point Defense, which was your team, Sauron. And through this period in NESL history, things seem to be rolling pretty all right. There were fairly consistent appearances of teams in competition, and going through the VODs, the games started to get a little bit less. One team kind of runs over the other and get a little bit more, tactical as things kind of began to get figured out more. And I just wondered if you could give us any insight onto the competition at the time. I mean, were there other teams that were big as opposed to Wunderwiesels and Point Defense, or were you guys kind of the reigning champions?
Well, there was Team Yomi, which would reliably show up, and that was Waterdeep's team. I can't remember who else was on it. There was also Team Sigma. I don't remember what they were called before they changed their name.
Innovation Gamers. That was
That's right.
Forge Life and Arawan were on that.
Yeah, I remember they won number 16.
Yeah, I remember that too because Forged Life, even to this day, has not shut up about that one. He's still, oh yeah, and we did it. And I'm like, cool.
There was definitely a lot more activity back in those days. Dominion was still kind of new, and people were either just trying it out or they saw they changed the weekly rewards, and they just wanted to throw together a team and go for it.
So there were more pickups around that era too.
Pretty much, yeah. More people were willing to form new teams and just try it out.
All right, and Tassenix, back at you in that era. It seems in the late teens to early 20s of NESL, it seems like the broadcast was at its best at that point. At least watching the VODs, the casting had improved. You had a little bit more consistent casters too, because I saw that you changed them out a lot from game to game. But I think that the ones that I was the biggest fan of, I actually think Karawar was the one that brought I think the most charisma to the broadcast around that time. And
As
you
she
had
should.
you had Erewhon also in some of those. I know you cast some of them. I'm probably missing at least 3 other ones that I can't remember. But it took you a long time to figure that out. And I know from a viewership side, that people were kind of critical about that for a while. But it seems like you got it figured out after a certain point. Can you talk about how the casting evolved through that and how that developed?
Well, Kara is the head of streaming for NESL. So you're right to find that she was charismatic and definitely had a great impact on our viewership when she was casting, because she is extremely skilled in that area. So what happened is that when we started streaming, unfortunately, we had a much more limited administrative staff than we did now. We had an enormous ballooning of admins come in over that period, and that gave us fresh meat, so to speak, to throw into training on the administration side of the site, which gave them a great opportunity to do brackets for Dominion. And it also gave people that were interested in joining us on our casting side to get some experience with how we like to do it. So we were able to take on quite a few people. We had the ones you mentioned. We also had Oni Snake. Let's see here. Gosh, a couple others here in my list. I can just name off the top of my head. Yeah, Terra Rising was another one there towards the end. That is who I was thinking of. But anyway, yeah, the criticism was well placed because it was spotty. Sometimes we had streaming problems from the streamers themselves. Their computers wouldn't necessarily be compatible with it. I myself had that problem. During that time, I had a RAM stick that was going bad, and I wasn't quite aware of it at the time. So we had one whole night where it was on and off broadcast because every time I'd get the stream up and running, about 10 minutes later or 5 minutes later, it would crash. So yeah, it was definitely a work in progress. We definitely stumbled our way onto our feet as it got moving. And I suppose that covers it. Unless you have a
Basically,
follow-up.
what happened is that NESL turned on smart casting, and then they learned how to use it.
You know, you don't know where that option is right away. I must have played 500 games of League before I was even told about it. There's nothing that indicates it at all. And you mentioned Oni Snake, and I don't know if he's watching or if he'll see it in the VOD, but I actually do want to shout out Oni Snake real quick because he actually just finished his degree in school. So big congratulations to him. I don't know if he's going to be going straight into looking for a job with it, or he's going to try and like take it further in school or not. But it's really cool that he's managed to accomplish that. So it's a side note. I wanted to throw that in there because Oni Snake's a cool guy. And
Very good.
moving over to the sort of the later era of NESL, and FeedSki, I haven't hit on you yet. You had some sporadic competition in NESL, but you never had a regular team. What's up with that?
Did I? I don't even remember, honestly. I don't know. I think it was just one of the things like, well, I found out about NESL kind of late. Like I didn't know till the later numbers, but I don't know. It was always just random people that I just kind of randomly decided to give it a go with. I never played it too competitively back then, so I didn't really care enough to actually try to find a team and settle down with one. And I honestly couldn't even tell you who was on my team the times I did play in the tournaments. But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember much from playing in those tournaments, to be honest. It was so long ago.
All right.
Random
Now, later era NESL. Let's say this is about NESL 23 to not necessarily current, but to to when it ended. This was March April of this year, and you know I think as I was saying, your broadcast it got really good. And it started out with you know these hiccups and not having a stream, and then things sort of getting figured out, and then you know in the 20s is when it started to be consistently an awesome thing to watch, and competition seemed to be fairly stable as well. There was a lot of repeat names and teams. Blind Pick Banditos, Snake Pit, Point Defense were all active there, and everything seemed to be great. And then there was no more NESL for some reason. I what what happened to it from a competitive level or from a back end level that caused it to sort of expire, as it were? It felt like everything was in a really good place.
Well, essentially, what we were trying to do with this program was to use it as a springboard based on community interest to see whether or not Dominion was going to become a serious competitive event for both NESL and Riot. Because Riot did, of course, supply all of our prizes and everything. So this was a sponsored event on both of our halves. And what they ended up deciding is that when that abrupt ending came was basically a conversation that was this has been an ongoing tournament for some time, but it doesn't seem that we're getting the sort of numbers that justify it continuing. It would dip and then it would come up a little, but on the whole, it was either being stable or declining in attendance. And for that reason, it was decided that the program should be discontinued.
I see. So it wasn't necessarily that there was anything wrong per se, with it. It's
No,
just that your expected kind of results from it were higher than what you actually got, and as a
right.
result, it kind of had to drop off.
Essentially, yes. There were better things up and coming with NESL that they wanted to experiment with, that they wanted to try, and having the time block on the stream open and also freeing up Riot to supporting other newer ideas with NESL is something that they were very interested in exploring. And I have to say the program did go on for some time, and despite it eventually becoming fairly well known among most of the regularly competitive Dominion players, it still didn't attract the viewership that NESL and Riot were looking for.
Okay. And to sort of close out, for you, and then Sauron, I'll have a couple questions on competition and meta for you, NESL era in a moment. Tassenix, for the when that all closed up. Now, where are you at with Dominion today? Do you still follow any of the competition or any of the media in your spare time? Because I imagine you're still doing other NESL related things if you're still with that
Ah.
organization.
Well, I am still technically with the organization, but since I no longer have any active project and we have a considerable abundance of administrators, all of our regular tournaments and get the administration and casting that they require. And in recent months, I've actually enrolled myself full time in a university, and it's
Ooh.
pursuing a computer engineering degree. So, to be frank, I don't have much time for anything, which is why we had to do a little juggling just so that we could get the time for this conversation.
Awesome. Well, hey, that's really cool to hear that you're getting into that. I mean, I really like that. I like that it seems like everyone that I meet that's involved in gaming is also involved, to some extent with higher education. Like a lot of people who are involved in either administration, production, broadcasting, management, some of the upper end players usually they seem to all be into college, so it's really cool to hear.
If it's like my grandparents say, if you want to move into a credential, sort of lifestyle, you have to earn the credential.
Yeah, I would definitely not disagree with that. And Sauron being active in NESL as much as you were, I was wondering if you could talk about how the competition evolved from when you first started playing in it to when the NESL era ended.
Oh, when I started playing, man, the champions weren't really all that well known. I mean, people were still going AP Cassidon and Manamune Yorick, things like that. Revive was also not really well known. People would sometimes take it on Pantheon or other global champions, but that was it.
Now, is there a
It did
point?
improve quite a bit. Um, I would have to say it was like 14, number 14, I think, when there was like a big there was a big turnaround in the finals match between us and One-Eyed Wonder Weasels, and they were running like dual support or something, and we couldn't deal with that, and we ended up splitting them up and turning that around, and we were losing the entire game prior to that. I
Oh
think it
wow.
was at that point when people started taking a bit of a closer look at the actual roles of champions and not really just kind of like spamming the tanky derps.
So the sort of tanky durable meta, I guess you could say, that theme has been present through all of Dominion that you've been active for.
Oh yeah, I mean I mean, we did in the early tournaments. We did run champions like Fizz and stuff, but it was mostly just tanky derps all over the place.
Can any of you guys identify when it became that? Because when it very first came out, we saw a lot of attack speed, attack damage. We saw a lot of speed, fragility, very heavy burst oriented stuff going on, even in Devastation, as Forecourt touched on, with the with Twitches doing the back capping deal and things like that, and a very big emphasis on mobility. And it seems like that's been kind of scaled back a little bit. I mean, mobility is definitely still an important thing, but it seems like durability has become the thing, as it were. Any ideas ballpark around when that changed?
Well, I can't really tell you. I would have to guess I would be on like late November that it happened. I do know that it started off with a lot of assassins and squishy glass cannons, and then people started just trying tanky derps, and they just fared much better.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Warmogs removal happened in late November, early December, if I remember right. And I think once that was removed and people kind of saw, well, hey, they're taking away a tanky item, then we kind of started to see that resurgence of tanks through January as people kind of started using more durable. Yeah, that's about right. Cool. Now, getting very late on into NESL, who were the competitive teams? I named a few. Did I miss any? Snake Pit, Point Defense, Wunderwiesels stopped participating in the late teens, I think. And
Yeah, they had inactivity issues.
okay, and then there was Yomi and there was Blind Pick, and I think Payzone and Child Support didn't participate in any of them, did they? Maybe the last one, but I don't think they were a team then.
Actually. If they participated, they were under a different name.
Yeah, no, I don't think PEX ever came about till later in Dominate Dominion tournaments.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to ask or anything they want to discuss about NESL era, or can we move on to the present era, as it were?
No questions on my end.
All right, where's my gavel? I'm gonna bang it. Next topic. Next sentence or next whatever. Prosecutor, defender, some court reference. Insert here. Okay, going on now to Dominate Dominion. Now, FeedSki, this is why I wanted you to be around, because you are the guy. Dominate Dominion goes back a surprisingly long way that people actually might not be aware of.
Yeah.
Short story about me. I got into Dominion in a sort of competitive, contributive way in November of last year, because Dominion came out and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And every time that I find something that's really cool and that I like, the first thing is, where is a third-party forum to talk about this? Because if anyone plays StarCraft 2, the best place to discuss StarCraft 2 is not necessarily the Blizzard forums, although they are great. But you can go to teamliquid.net and check out their forums. They have an excellent community there. With World of Warcraft, they had elitist jerks for the high-level, raiding scene, and people would discuss, talk and tactics there. And for other video games, I mean, video game speedrunning has their own set of websites, Speed Demos Archive, Speedruns Live, task videos, things like that. And for Dominion, I'm like, well, I gotta find what is the Team Liquid of Dominion. And then I found the site of Dominion, which was Dominate Dominion. I just found that just by going and searching the internet. It just popped up. I had no leads to it. I knew nothing about it. I just found it by sheer accident. Found out there was a chat channel. I went and got it, and that's where I met. That's how I've come to run into all of you fine folks here today. And that was in October, November, and I was doing my own casts and recordings of my own gameplay and stuff like that. And FeedSki was like, hey, come cast this thing. And that was back December 17th was Dominate Dominion 0, as I refer to it, because I don't think there's actually been a proper name ever assigned to it. And so, FeedSki, when did the site actually launch?
I mean, I don't know. I guess it first launched October 13th, but it wasn't actually a site. Like, it started with just a forum. Um, I didn't really have intentions to ever run tournaments or anything like that. Um, Around October is when I really started to enjoy the game. I wanted to try to find some others to play with. Um, so yeah, I just made a forum, and then it kind of grew from there. But yeah, October 13th is when like the forum officially went up. But I guess you can't really call that the site. But I mean, as far as a date for the site goes, I couldn't tell you.
All right.
It kept changing, and yeah.
Now that brought the chat channel into existence, which the chat channel is Dominate Dominion. So if you're on North America server, you want to hang out with other Dominion players, Dominate Dominion is the chat channel, and you can check that out there. And if you're on Europe West, there's a presence over there. They love it when I shout them out. If you're on Europe West, there's a chat channel called Dominion, and they have their own different series of tournaments over there run by the Four Players Liga organization. So if you know anyone that's on Europe West, you can point them in that direction. But for NA, Feedski's kind of the guy with the chat channel, and you ran a tournament in December of last year, and then you didn't start doing tournaments regularly until April of the following year. Now, what was it that caused the one-off to turn into what is now an ongoing set of competitive events?
I don't know. I guess I started enjoying it more, and then I don't know. I just wanted to try to make it more competitive, because when I started, well, Dominate Dominion Zero, that was like, well, let me look at your stream. You got all the dates. Okay, that was December 17th. I didn't start doing the weekly ones until April 21st. So that was, I remember writing the rules for it too. My brother and I went back to our old hometown of Crockett to visit my family, and then that's when I kind of decided.
What state is that in?
That's in Texas, East Texas. Very small town. Never visit. It's horrible. Anyways, that was we were coming back from a vacation from there, driving back to Austin, and that's when the idea kind of came about. And then I got a notepad out of my backpack and started writing rules for it, and just, I don't know, came up with all the information and did it. And then it's, yeah, I don't know, just happened, I guess.
Well, it's been rolling pretty steadily since its inception. It ran concurrently with NESL for a very brief period in April, where we had two events going on at once before NESL ended, and then there was just Dominate Dominion, and it's been going on for not quite 29 events, so it hasn't outlived NESL yet. But it's pretty close. Both those organizations, yours and NESL, have ran for a really long time, and they both have seen steady competition. But whereas one seems like it didn't meet baselines, and things were a little strange with it. FeedskiSki, yours has had something interesting happen to it. You had you were doing all the brackets and things through the forum originally, right? All the signups and brackets and things?
Yeah, that's correct. I was doing it all by hand in the beginning, in Paint.
Really?
Yeah, and Paint, Microsoft Paint. That was.
Whoa! I was not aware of that. That's some trivia.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how it did come about, and then FourCourtJester hooked me up with the guys from Cybersports. We had a meeting and decided that they could power the tournaments, and it'd be a lot easier that way. That's how we got to Cybersports. But the first 13 or 14 tournaments, they were all done on the forums, just with. But I mean, you can do that because the community was so small. Like, we had the chat room, all the teams, like all the members of the teams were in the chat room, so it was fairly easy to communicate. So I mean, everyone knew how to use a forum, and so that made it easy. But yeah, the forum overall wasn't too easy to use for a whole tournament system. So.
And the CSN thing was, it just seems like that was one step. I mean, you went from site to experimenting with a tournament to running a tournament, then to the working with Cybersports Network, which I am so happy that you are as a guy who's collecting match media, because it's now so much easier to get the brackets and get a hold of all of these things than before, when I had to pull them out through all threads and stuff, and I just screenshot, the image and stuff on the forum and do all this like voodoo and make sure like Venus was in the right orbit so that the data was right and get people to upload it and stuff. And now, with the CSN thing, it's a lot easier to pick up the match media, especially since you've had people emailing it to you also. So people that don't post on the site, you get emails, and those will have just like a whole bunch of in it. Having a naming format has also helped a lot. And your site, your broadcast expanded to doing player streams as well. How'd you come to the decision to do that?
I don't know. I guess it's like, as I said earlier, when I started the site, I just was looking for people to play with. As time went on, I really thought like it could be taken more seriously. I didn't like how the current players looked at Dominion, so I was like, no skill, blah blah blah. We've all heard it. So I didn't like that, and then I don't know. I just kept adding more and more stuff to it. I mean, Dominion was the only map that I played on League of Legends, and I wanted to try helping it out. So I just kept gradually adding more stuff. I mean, I knew firsthand that streams brought in new players, and overall I was trying to grow Dominion player base. So I don't know, knowing that streams like Riot Rival, for example, he started playing Dominion because of Necrogen's stream and everything like that, and just knowing that kind of stuff, I figured, well, hey, maybe if we can get some streams up and running, then we can attract even more players. So I got together Necrogen and Nyx on a Snake, started with them and asked if they wanted to stream like 1 day a week for a weekly basis, and they were all down. So yeah, so it happened.
And then I need you to hear this from my point of view, because maybe it'll make you giggle, or maybe it'll make a viewer giggle. It's an ordinary day. I was out the night before. I'm sleeping in. I wake up and I get up and I'm like, oh man, I gotta process some of these videos and gotta turn these VODs around. I'm gonna log on to the. I'm gonna get on my computer, and I'm still in bed, and I'm like reaching over to turn my computer on. I'm just smack a key on the computer, and I wake up, and I still had my headset plugged in from the night before. I was too lazy to unplug it and plug my speakers in, and I get online. Skype opens automatically like it does. I see a message from Oni Snake. It says, "Hey, dude, go to Riot's website." And I'm like, "Okay." I go there, and I see Dominate Dominion, and I'm like, there's no one at home in my house, and I'm like, holy fuck, I need to be online right now. And I'm like trying to get all my stuff set up, and I'm like logging into the Twitch chat, and like I'm expecting the worst. And it was as zany as I imagined. There were thousands of viewers on this stream. Everyone was asking questions. It was like me and 3 or 4 other guys like trying to answer every question that was going on, and like that was like a zoo, and it was awesome at the same time. How did it get to that? Like it seemed like it was just kind of steady, and then all of a sudden you're on the front page of Riot. What?
Yeah. It kind of was steady, and then bam. But I don't know. I think it was they wanted to show that because if you browse through the Dominion forums, everyone always complains like Riot doesn't care about us, blah blah blah. I think in a way they wanted to show like, look guys, we're all here, like we're trying to fix the problems. We can't just like snap our fingers and do it instantly. So in the meantime, to show that we care about you, here, look, we're featuring Dominate Dominion. I mean, what was their thought process? I don't really know. That's what I think went on in their head. But yeah, I don't know. It just the guy actually was in charge of it. He said, when Honest Snake was streaming, he asked if he was ready for the boom, or he asked me if I was ready for the boom, and just randomly asked that, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, do you like surprises? And I said yes, and then he just stopped talking completely. And then a couple minutes, or probably like 15 minutes later, like I see the viewers shoot up from like 40 to 50, 60, 70, 100, 300. And I'm like, what is going on? What did he do? So I started looking on Twitter, seeing if they tweeted about it or if he tweeted about it. And then I go to League of Legends homepage and see it. And then that's when I was like, okay, so that was a surprise. I'll take it. Yeah, and it was really just sudden.
It was pretty cool, man. I mean, I had a lot of fun being in the chat that day, and you let me cast a little bit of the stream afterwards for a little while. We had like 2K, 3K viewers, and the initial hype kind of died down a little bit over the weeks. After that, but overall, it feels like viewership's been up and participation's been up. So some of that has stuck there, and that's kind of like where are we at now? We got the riot effect or the boom. I'm sure the boom. Let's call it that because I think that's a pretty cool name. Riot dropped the boom, and things got like really nutty, and the tournament week after that was also a really good week for us casting and for participation. There were tons of teams, and now we're still seeing a lot of teams. And that was on September 17th we were on the front page. It's October 20 somethingth, and we're still filling our bracket now, which is great. I haven't had the Twitch page open during cast because I don't have the second monitor right now, so I haven't seen the stream numbers. What are we looking at? Are we breaking the 300s regularly? Are we doing 1K? Like, what's up?
Unfortunately, not 1K. No. Like a lot of the streams, they warn me too. They're like, well, you'll get a lot of viewers, but they don't usually stay. And I was like, well, that's fine. I don't really care. It's whatever. But a couple of them have stayed. Our numbers have increased pretty good amount. Last week was actually fairly low. I'm not sure why. I think there may have been a huge charity gaming event going on during the tournament.
Last week was Double IP weekend, and there was another event. It does seem that our numbers kind of depend on what's going on in Summer's Riftland at the same time a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Last week was pretty low, but the weeks before, it's not the 5,000 that we were getting when Riot advertised us. But it's still 300. Gets up there and stuff, so it's good.
It's good because I haven't like I said, I haven't looked at, so I'm like, are we doing better? Are we doing worse? What's going on? I've been having this little internal panic about it.
It hits 300, so it's not terrible, but It's definitely not the 5,000 that was there.
Yeah, I always wondered what the retention would be like from that, so I guess it's pretty nice, especially filling out the brackets. I think that's the thing that I'm the most excited about. That's kind of resulted of all this. And Sauron, I want to throw to you now that Feedski's been talking for a minute. Point Defense has been active in Dominate Dominion for basically the entire time that it's existed, and I think you would know better than anyone, how things have sort of played out. And I wanted to mention in NESL there were only 6 bans, if I have that right.
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and we've added, in Dominate Dominion, at the sort of request of the players and broadcasters, the casters and the players, that we are like, hey, we're seeing a lot of this. It might be a little. We don't want it to stagnate. We want to kind of mix it up. And then, between, us and the players, and then, we talked to FeedSki and Oni Snake, and we like, hey, let's make it 10 bands, and then it got made into 10 bands. And from a competitive view, Sauron, how is being able to have those extra bands affected play?
The extra bands is an extremely good thing because the champion selection was getting very stagnant at that point. The first ban has to be casted in on the second pick team, and then the next ban has to be Jace, and then the next ban has to be like Urgot or something. It was getting very, very old. And there was just like no room for targeted bans anymore because all the ops had been identified, and yeah.
Now, with the with the sort of increase in the bans, and as you said, the increase in targeted bans, I've also noticed a couple of other things go on that I was wondering if you could elaborate on a little bit, because there's some things that I've always been curious about that I haven't been able to pin down. I just want to throw a few questions about champions at you. Diana, relatively new, and Wukong, Warwick, and Yorick, relatively old champions. Yorick not getting picked or banned as much as he used to. Same with Wukong and Warwick; they're not getting picked and banned as much. It seems like some teams like to use them, some teams don't. It seems like they can go either way. When it seemed for a while that they were the go-to picks bans, and Diana is amazing, and I don't know what makes Diana so good.
Well, Diana is extremely high damage, magic damage, and when she hits 6, she basically insta-gives the opposing bot laner.
Okay, so it's just the damage that she can deal, it makes her such an attractive choice.
Right, especially with spell vamp and stacking defense.
Okay, now what's up with with the other three? Why do they not seem as prevalent as they used to be?
Well, Yorick got some nerfs to his ghouls, and then people basically figured out that lifesteal counters this guy really badly because it nullifies his harass. And that was, I think Yorick completely fell out of favor when Diana came around and Nunu was buffed, because that just took him out of the game.
Okay.
I don't remember which other champions you're talking about.
It was Wukong, Warwick, and Yorick.
Wukong is still picked a lot. I mean, he's a tanky derps that does a lot of damage, has an escape, and some AoE to contribute. Warwick, on the other hand, he did get a slight nerf, but that wasn't the reason why people stopped playing him. The reason why people stopped playing him is that he is horrendously boring to play, and
Okay.
you don't want to play him unless you have to, because he is a single target tanky derps that builds straight tank, and basically does nothing except initiate on one person. And people started taking more AoE disables and supports, and that basically nullifies Warwick's ability to initiate properly.
Okay, and to touch on some of the newer champions, because as you said, it seemed to be the same kind of things over and over. We see a lot of Jack's Pantheon, saw a lot of Yorick Urgot, and we saw a lot of Caston and Rammus bans getting banned. Actually, before I go to the stuff that's really present day, what the hell happened to Shaco? Where'd he go? Everyone hated him, and now it's like never see him.
Shaco basically got replaced by Rengar, but before that, he fell out of favor kind of with a Jack in the Box nerf and the durations. That didn't really affect AD Shaco, which is what everybody considers the greater threat. But people kind of realized that the whole deceive thing wasn't really all that great of a key mark or whatever of a champion.
Okay.
And people just kind of realized that, we can take this tanky derps that also has a gap closer and we can just use that to escape or whatnot.
Now, for the very present day, it seems like recent champion releases have been absolutely hellacious in Dominion. Jace, Kha'Zix, and Rengar. It feels like... Is it just that we haven't figured these champions out? Because I feel like we're going to get into another position where we don't have enough bans. We don't want to add
It's
more
not that
bans.
we haven't figured them out, it's that they weren't balanced for Dominion at all. The problem with Kha'Zix and Jace is that they're based on a farming lane or a farming game, and they are also using mana as a serious constraint for them. And you take a look at Jace in Summoner's Rift, and he's not like he doesn't have a surefire way of getting out of ganks like he does in Dominion. It's just the map layout. But when it comes to Dominion, he can really angle his knockback. He can really use that speed boost to just completely get out of ganks. I don't believe Summoner's Rift really caught on to the AD carry way of building him for quite some time, but it is extremely effective. And it's mostly everybody just chalks up Jace's OP-ness to just ridiculously high numbers. And that was true in Twisted Treeline as well. Rengar, on the other hand, who is manaless, he was basically permaban in Summoner's Rift, but his numbers were simply just too high, and then the whole double leap thing, and then the empowered Q is just the empowered Q being able to crit was just too much. You know, you had Rengar who had like Last Whisper, and then he could basically afford to go Glass Cannon and then use his ult to get away rather than initiate.
The last note on
And then
those.
Kha'Zix, on the other hand, is just the complete opposite. He builds straight tank and initiates, and because of penetration, he deals tons of damage.
And they're both AD champs, right? I'm not crazy.
They're both
What?
AD champs.
Okay. Now, a last mention that I had on those two champions is they have a unique interaction with each other in the item builds. Is that something that comes into play in Dominion at all that would make you not want to have one if the other one's picked?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So it's just like oh hey, and that's about it?
It's a neat little interaction, but it's certainly not a decision in picking those champions.
Okay. So I wanted to know if the trophy stack or the extra evolve really had any impact. But I feel like it would happen so late in the game that I'm not sure. I think that the builds would be advanced to the point where it's like mitigated a little bit.
Even if it happens, it's not much of an advantage for the victor. You know, it's just not really something worth considering.
Okay, so you just use them and not be afraid of it. That's what you're getting at.
Right. I mean, if both champions happen to be in the same game, that's fine, but you don't pick Rengar because the enemy has Kha'Zix or whatnot.
Okay, and when did supports become a thing? Supports people didn't really. I mean, there's sort of roles now. You mean you have your ganker, your burst, your assassin type person, and it seems like you've got a tank and an AP and either you run like a dedicated tank like an Alistar, or it seems like you run a pair of bruisers and a dedicated tank AP and a ranged, or you run like two bruisers AP. Like, what are some of the common layouts that we see?
Well, back in the old days, Malika and Senzaiken and sometimes Wowix of Team One-Eyed Wonder Weasels would run a support, but it was more of an actual support build. I don't think it was until Zymike and Blind Pick Bandits showed up that people realized just how powerful a support is when built straight tank.
Mm-hmm. And out of the supports, I feel like I only see a couple of them out of the many that there are. See a lot of Janna, a lot of Sona, and other than that, we seem to just see those two. We see sort of a kind of support-ish styled of other champions, but it seems to be predominantly those two. And yeah, just can you elaborate on that a little?
You can ask Zymike about this, and he'll give you some tirade about how Wuwu and Jen are the only true supports.
Oh, that's
But
right, Lulu. I forgot Lulu. That was
the real thing is preference. Aside from Wuwu being overpowered, Janna is able to disrupt things from a very long distance away, and she's able to get out of ganks really fast, as opposed to Lux, who can disrupt from a far ways away and is a great team fighter, but she can't really escape a gank. And
Okay.
then there's Tarek, who is also a popular pick, and he is basically the number one initiator.
Now Descend will want me to ask about this. Karma? Question mark?
Karma needs some work. Basically, you just go into a fight, use two abilities, and then you can't really do anything while waiting for something to cycle.
Like, it feels like the numbers on each one of her individual abilities are pretty solid, though. It's just the lack of being able to continually do things.
It's a whole functionality problem with Mantra. They need to take Mantra out and make it her passive, and then give her a fourth skill.
Ooh. Man, I never thought of it like that. That's genius. I'm gonna link this to Rioters now. Be like, yeah, do it. You guys have anything you want to bounce off of Sauron in regards to meta or the way that competition's evolved?
I love you, Sauron.
No. I just have to say it was always fun watching point defense play. The entire team has the sort of level of interest that Sauron obviously it's demonstrating here. It was always a lot of fun to watch that kind of play and that kind of strategy in action.
All right. Well, we have one more topic to cover, and I'm a little sad that Forecourt couldn't stay for this part, but it was at the very end. This segment is called the future, and I'm gonna go around between all of us and kind of muse about, what we would change, what we'd want to see, what we think might happen. I mean, I was joking with some guys in the Dominate Dominion chat channel the other day about, what League of Legends would be like in the year 2145. We would have 600 champions, still only 6 bans. Caston would finally be getting a rework, the last of the original 200 quote-unquote released champions to get a rework. Magma Chamber slated for next year to be released in early 2146, and I'm just throwing a lot of these different off-the-wall ideas, like for Dominion's second outer ring turret damage decreased by X percentage and other weird stuff. But I think that, competition in Dominion is pretty solid. It's fun to watch. I have a lot of fun casting it. I feel like not enough people understand it, unfortunately, to get the enjoyment that I or others get out of it from a spectator standpoint. I also find that as a caster, it's kind of hard sometimes to talk about the action. And I'm going to speak about casting theory for a brief moment here, is that in Summoner's Rift, as the fight is starting to brew, you can go over how the items are going to affect the fight. But in Dominion, we spend so much time talking about the positional game between the players and breaking down why that's important that we don't get to go over the items or some of the other things until after the fight. So it's a lot of post-fight commentary, and me and Chober have kind of only recently started to figure out that that's the place to put that. So casting's still not figured out for Dominion quite yet, but we're improving, I think, every week on it. And I think that once our casting gets a little bit better, and once we get, I'd love to see like streamers 7 day a week, except for Tournament Saturday, and if we can get them doing some more lively commentary, or maybe get some in-houses on the stream and make it an event out of a stream, I guess, to say, hey, there's like community hour on the stream where the player is going to do a couple community games and like break down strategy and talk about things a little bit, and then go back to doing the ladder with commentary. And I'm going to keep making videos like this where I bring people on and help break down Dominion. That's why this is called the Dominion Breakdown, because all I could think of is, we gotta like talk about things, we gotta elaborate on them, we gotta break things down. What do I call this? And then I'm like, I was watching a speed run of a video game by a speedrunner named Breakdown, and I'm like, oh, of course. And I'm named it the Dominion Breakdown after Breakdown the player. And I'm going to keep doing things like this because, sometimes there's things we can't fit in a cast, and I feel like that people that are interested in Dominion need a resource, whether it be text, because FeedSki, I think you've got that under control, but let's put some video media out there too. And I think that we just got to kind of keep this media push rolling. It's snowballing a little bit. I think we gotta build it up a little bit more. So for me, I'm going to expand my casting. I've started doing 4PL in Europe West on Sunday mornings, and I'm going to be doing this media here. And FeedSki lets me cast for Dominate Dominion, which is like my favorite thing of the week. I'm gonna keep doing what I can do to bring the game to you guys and help you be able to see it the way that I see it. That's what I'm gonna do for the future of Dominion. Where do I see it going? I see it going where we put it. I think it's on us to kind of like pick it up and run with it. FeedSki, what do you think? For what's the future like for DD? What are your plans? What do you see as being able to contribute to Dominion, and how you can help make it better? Because I feel like there's not a lot of media, and that's what I'm trying to contribute to.
I don't know. I guess it really depends on what they do in season 3. That's gonna be a huge thing. See what they bring into Dominion, or how they change it, or what they do with it. There are obviously some balance issues which are stopping a lot of people from playing it, and that stops it from being looked at as competitive in a way as well. But I'm just gonna still do what I've been doing and just try to grow it, expand to EU, get that top 5 plays of the week out, hopefully sometime soon, which I've been trying to do forever. I don't know. It depends a lot on season 3 though. Really depends what they're going to be doing with the map before I know how it's going to be progress.
So are there changes to the map that you'd like to see?
I mean, yeah, there could be some. I mean, just changes as far as I don't really like the middle buffs right now. I think those could go and get replaced with something else that could add something cool to the map. Like a Baron type thing in the middle, but not exactly a Baron. But I just don't like the single buff that one person can get. Especially because it doesn't really end up doing a ton since the meta is pretty tanky anyways. So I mean, it helps of course, but I don't know. I feel there could be something that helps the team overall a lot more, and it could become like another main objective. I don't know. There's a lot of small things I'd love to see on the map happen, but
So
I
sort
could
of
go on
a
forever.
sort of a revamp, maybe not a revamp, but just at least a reevaluation of the way
Yeah,
it works
definitely.
today.
Yeah.
For any VOD viewers or stream viewers out there, you know, we're not necessarily alone in our endeavor, you know, as you know, Dominion broadcasters and players and producers and things like that. You know, I mean, we've been in contact with Riot to a degree, you know, about things, but the from what I understand, if I remember correctly, that Twisted Treeline, Crystal Scar, and Proving Grounds are all in one department right now. And with the Twisted Treeline remake being released, or having been released just now, I think it came out today, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. That I think that we're going to see a lot of Twisted Treeline stuff for a few months, and then maybe after that, I mean, I'd like to think that, you know, maybe Dominion might be their next project. I mean, it's their third oldest game mode, but you
I
know,
wouldn't doubt that.
it's only
I mean,
time
you
will
can
tell.
expect some actual work on Dominion now that Twisted Treeline is done.
Yeah, definitely. Twist Treeline needed it before Dominion, in all honesty. I
It's
mean,
older, so
not to mention, there's just some really simple things on Twisted Treeline that made it broken as shit. Like just the turtling thing and everything like that. But
all
I
right.
don't know. I think Twist Treeline definitely needed rework, and Dominion rework's coming next, I feel. Possibly, I don't know.
I don't believe they will rework Dominion, but like you
No,
said,
not
they
rework.
will reevaluate certain things, like the Storm Shield on the map, for example, is best taken in a gank, and that's just kind of strange how you just take a shield and then just go bottom and dive someone on a point with it.
Yeah.
It's not really like a team thing. And then there's also a few other issues in the map, like balance and things like that.
Yeah, I'm also thinking, what if they just got rid of well, maybe not even rid of completely, but the passive mana regen and everything like that.
I don't like that aura. I think
they
we would figure it out without the aura just fine.
they nerfed Jace, which will hurt on Summer Drift quite a bit. They did a couple things, but one thing was a mana cost, so like he can't just spam as frequently and still be fine. But that doesn't really do anything on Dominion, considering like it has that mana regeneration.
We're gonna see
I feel if they
Mamune
just
Jace now, and it'll be terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if they just got rid of that or replaced it with something in a way it could help a lot of the balance issues, it'd make
I
people
think
think
because
smarter.
I think the problem mainly stems from the passive gold generation, and we don't want to remove that because that's a defining feature of the map.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe if they removed the passive penetration and then upped the cost on defense, it would solve a lot of issues that we see on champions like Urgot just penetrating people down to zero
Yeah,
and things like that.
yeah.
Do you have
There's
any
definitely
other?
some things that can be done to fix it, but I think I mean, now that Gnome's done with Twisted Tree Line, or I don't know if he's done, I suppose, but now that he's done what he has done for Twisted Tree Line, I'm curious to see what he's planning for Dominion.
Well, yeah, I mean they are absolutely not going to split champions at any given point. We've already seen from Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 that doing that makes it extremely complicated and difficult to maintain. And their approach by adding new items and stuff like that is a very good one. And I do expect to see a lot of new items in Dominion at some point. And I do believe that will constitute the remake or whatnot.
Yeah.
Is there anything from a competitive standpoint that, like, how do you think competition would play out in the future? Like, because you're the guy. I mean, for competition, I think you probably know it better than we do. How do you feel that's going to go in the coming months, year, whatever?
Well, short of the revamp, I don't expect it to change a whole lot. I mean, right now the meta is balanced teams, and that's a pretty good meta to be in. You know, one AD carry typically, one bruiser typically, a support or tank, and an AP carry.
Do you think the door would ever open to bring in some of the other champions, or do you think it's always going to be sort of the characters that we see now? I see Draven play
Not
once in a
without
while,
patch
and he
changes.
seems okay. Same with Varus, but it seems like it's just going to be Ezreal Vayne, Ezreal Vayne Corki. I think it feels like they're just going to be the top ones for a while. For mages, it seems like we're going to see a lot of Brand and Swain. We're not going to see a lot of the other guys.
Well,
It
the
just feels
issues
like
with
there's
all
more
these champions you're
options.
listing is that their strengths and weaknesses come from their baseline mechanics, and these mechanics were designed for Summoner's Rift. And their imbalances in Summoner's Rift are due to numbers and not baseline mechanics. So we aren't going to really see a whole big change up in selection unless there is a serious revamp of items or the actual map layout.
Yeah, I can see that. The map layout, I guess, does defeat some of the characters that especially like Varus, who likes to have that long range poke, and if he wants to have that if he wants to have that long range poke onto a point, then he's going to be off it by one of the jumpable walls, and that makes him kind of bait for Cash, Ezreal, Kha'Zix, Rengar, etc.
Probably one of the best examples is Cho'Gath, because the structure of the walls and the speed shrines just completely screw him over on this map. But he's a really strong really strong champion on Twisted Treeline, the old Twisted Treeline, and Summoner's Rift.
Okay. And now Tassenix, as you'd mentioned, you've gotten more into college right now because NESL is in a pretty good spot. So I feel like your future's kind of uncertain. Is it gonna be? Are we gonna see you back in Dominion Land at some point, maybe? Or are you gonna stick with the going where NESL needs to go with the Summer's Rift or whatever may come in the future for them?
Well, what's going to happen with me is I'm mostly sticking to my studies. It's not often that I'm getting time to even play anymore. So let alone being involved in any sort of regular NESL schedule. But I'll tell you this much: once I have perhaps a more relaxed semester coming up in the future, I want to get back into whatever NESL requires in League, and and possibly in my own time looking into casting with other groups just to keep myself in Dominion.
Okay, cool. So you'll be around in some capacity, but it's going to be a lesser capacity for a while.
Certainly. And I'm always available on, on Skype for whatever, but the point is I'm generally just studying most of the time.
Oh, that's totally cool. Does anyone else have any musings or anything about the future before I go around the table to close it up?
No, I think it's got a pretty set path ahead of it until it has its adjustments, and then from there, I imagine we'll have a slight some small amounts of change, but I think that the format that we have right now, I think everybody's going to be surprised to see not so much how much it does change, but how much is staying the same, because a lot of people are already nursing some very high expectations from this. And I would always just caution realism with it, because they're not going, as Sauron pointed out, they're not going to retool the whole map. They're just going to give it some spit and polish.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and go around and let you guys sort of do the hi, my name is, and you can find my media here. Let you plug or promote whatever you guys want with your time. Just don't make me have to put on like the Oscar music or get the Looney Tunes cane out and yank you off the stage. So we'll go Sauron, we'll go Feedski, Tassenix, and then I'll close up the show.
Well, my name is Sauron, and I have a gigantic guide in the Dominion forums, and a tier list there as well, which people seem to think is more important to bump for some reason. And you can usually find me on the Spectate Live thing because it counts Dominion games as well. You just have to look at the background of the picture if there's houses and it's a Dominion game. Lately, I've been doing a lot of Twisted Treeline, and it's really fun. And I think it's a good holdover until Dominion gets ranked, which is, well, I can't say when because I know, but I can't. I'm not allowed to say. But it's soon. Trademark.
He's cheating on us. Hey, Blizzard has that trademark. Can't they sue Riot or something if they use Soon TM? Maybe they don't actually have it trademarked. I don't know. But yeah, Sauron also plays for Point Defense. You can see him in some of the VODs that you can find on Feedski's YouTube channel, youtube.com/DominateDominion, or you can see alternate camera angles and some other games of Sauron's on my clan's YouTube channel, youtube.com/VatoClan. So if you want to see some of Sauron's gameplay, you can check out those two sources. Feedski, who are you?
TheFeedski, I run Dominate Dominion. That's basically it. I play Dominion too, but yeah, I don't know. Just from Dominate Dominion. That's all.
Find his Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/DominateDominion. The tournament's every Saturday at
8 Eastern.
what time?
8 Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And it's free to play. Anyone can come and sign up. You know, just bring your friends. You're gonna play Dominion anyway, so why not maybe win some RP? Maybe get your game cast. Brag to your friends, man. Hey, look, I play in games that get streamed. I think I know what I'm doing. You can brag and you can be that guy if you're so inclined. And you can follow him on Twitter @DominateDom for news and updates for Feedski's work. And Feedski plays some Dominion too. He's played in a few tournaments. And you can see some VODs that include his gameplay on either mine or his YouTube channel.
Let's not, though. Let's not.
He's not as good as he used to be.
I've
He doesn't
been
play as
slacking
actively.
a little bit,
Yeah.
sadly, but
You bust
you
out that
gotta do what
LeBlanc
you
again,
gotta
man.
do.
That stuff was scary. Dude, you distortioned so hard, me and Chobra did not know where you went. We're like, because they gave her the double distortion, like go different directions and recall differently with different buttons. So it's just like whoosh whoosh, and me and Choba were like, "Where did what?" And there was like 2 seconds where we're just panning the camera around trying to find
It's
you.
always fun.
And it's like, and then we find out where you went, then you're not there anymore because you went back, and we're like, "Got him." Okay. I'm trying to find that clip so I could put it in a highlight reel, but I haven't been able to get a hold of it. And Tassenix, where can people check out NESL and any of your media?
Well, nationalesl.com is the home site. You can, I don't currently have any media going on with League of Legends in general right now, just due to my schedule. But if anybody has any questions or anybody wants to play a game, you're always free to email me at tassenix@gmail.com.
Okay, yeah. So definitely check out DominateDominion.com. Check out the National ESL. And Sauron plays some games. You can find the VODs on youtube.com/DominateDominion and youtube.com/VatoClan. Just type in Sauron in the channel search, and games that he's in should come up. Or type in Point Defense. Games that he's in should come up. And I'm your host, Gandair. And just a shout out for FourCourtJester real quick, who was on earlier but had to go because he was casting a tournament. And you can find him on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, FourCourtJester. And he's also been casting for ESV for for one of their tournaments. And I've been liking his casting in that too. So, but for now, I'm Gandair. Check out my media, youtube.com/VatoClan, and twitch.tv /VatoClan, and follow my gaming clan on Twitter for news and updates with what I'm doing. This show is going to be ongoing. Different topic next week, yet to be decided. Might have the same guests or different guests. Probably different guests for different topics. And I'll rotate people in and out as necessary, depending upon what the subject of the show is. But we're going to break down all things Dominion, champs, items, map, meta, tournaments, all of that you can see in the future right here in these broadcasts. So I want to thank you guys for coming on, FeedSki, Sauron, Tassenix especially, because it's really nice to have the conflict on the Crystal Scar point of view that we've kind of always been lacking in discussion. So thank you very much for coming on, guys, and
No trouble.
we'll see y'all later.
Take care.